actually been working out in this area for 13 years, mostly in the industrial sector in the last 5 years, 6 years into the entire 10th Ward and all the projects that are involved on lots of levels. One of the most exciting things that we just, process that we just went through was the South Chicago Lead ND Initiative. It's actually taking all the existing plans that have been worked on, including from Steel Town to Hometown, taking the principles and applying them to this new rating system. So I'll go through it. A lot of the slides I will go through pretty quickly. My information's on here with my email, so if you have follow-up questions, you definitely can email me and I can get you information you need. But this initiative is likely to change the face of South Chicago over the next 30 years. The three groups that are involved in this rating system are the National Resource Defense Council, Congress for the New Urbanism, and the U.S. Green Building Council, which more people are aware of due to the LEED building system. What is LEED ND? It's basically a neighborhood, it's a rating system that looks at the overall neighborhood. It doesn't just look at LEED buildings. LEED buildings is our good start, but one LEED building does not change a neighborhood. When you look at it comprehensively, this is the kind of initiative that can. Of course, they're on a point system. We had originally tried to target a much higher level. Actually, we tried platinum, but based on what we had to work with and the type of developers we worked with, we did get certified, and that's the level we're looking for. This is the boundary area, which is the entire U.S. Steel site, and a big portion of the adjacent neighborhood. This area was selected because it is the most challenged. We own the most city land in this area, therefore we would have the most control over the type of development that would come in. As you can see, the U.S. Steel site's about 50% of this project area. This is a conceptual plan based on LEED standards. Everything is metric. It has to be so far from a train station, so far from a park, so far from certain amenities that are fixed. So a lot of communities want to be a LEED neighborhood development, but they won't be because they don't meet LEED, the U.S. Green Building Council's criteria for a LEED community. We are actually the largest in the continental U.S. You can have 2 buildings and a train stop and be a LEED neighborhood development. Ours is 1,140 acres. It's truly an initiative of very large scale. Many of these LEED neighborhood projects are not going to happen due to the decline in the real estate market. You can have 2 types of LEED neighborhood developments, a build project or a plan. This one is a plan. Basically, these are all the things you have to look at when you're putting this plan together. So you can see it's exceptionally thoughtful, and you need to address every one of those issues in terms of how you address your project. And of course, on a site like U.S. Steel, which is an artificial landmass, a landfill, a lot of these things where they want you to look at site design for habitat or wetlands conservation, restoration of habitats. Well, how about creation of habitat? If you don't have it, maybe we can create this with the new system. So ours is a little bit different. They never expected to have someone submit a landfill site for this program. And of course, you look at some other issues. All of these things must be addressed and answered when you submit your plan to them or your proposal. Again, these are all the credits you get. We did get one excellent innovation project credit for a project I worked on a few years ago, which was the Mud Parks project with then Lieutenant Governor Pat Quinn, and that's helped us a lot. This is just the checklist. I would never read this to anybody. It's abusive. But it gives you an idea of what you would have to put together to submit if you wanted to submit a project. And that's basically where we're at. This is something that's going to be really great. Of course, right now, the current existing park open space plan is pretty limited. In the future, this is what's proposed on the U.S. Steel site as it develops out, as well as you see South Chicago Park down in the south area. That will all be green over the next 20 to 30 years, of course, depending on funding. It's not a good time for funding right now, but it's a good time for planning. Of course, these are some of the housing developments that we put out a request for proposals about 6 years ago now. Wow. And actually, the Claretian Associates submitted their version of a 3-flat LEED building. When these buildings get developed, and they won't be developed for another several years given the current real estate market, the types of homes we're likely to have are infill. And new construction, 100% new construction LEED buildings on the U.S. Steel site, and then residential infill on the vacant lots throughout the neighborhood will also be LEED buildings. So we're trying to do 2 very significant things at one time. Of course, this is UrbanWorks. This is right when you make that turn right off of the park. on US 41 coming down through the neighborhood. These are lovely homes. They addressed the rooftop. They really did a nice job. And in LEED, you don't just look at your building. You look at where it sits, how is your landscape, drought-resisting plantings. Everything about how you operate needs to be handled in a sensitive, sustainable way. Of course, that's what some of them will look like. And if you see, this is an existing home over here. So what we ask the architects to do in their designs are basically keep them in the scale of the neighborhood. Now, they're modern buildings, but they're definitely in the scale of the neighborhood. Of course, these are some infill homes that could be on Buffalo. Now again, conceptually, this is what one architect's view of what their interpretation of this building is. Again, given the market conditions, it might not look exactly like this by the time it gets built, but this is one interpretation. And more? We'd love to see that there instead of the trucks that are parked on that lot right now. And of course, now again, we have no guarantees that these particular buildings will be the ones, but these were the ones that were designed by VOA architects. So you have 3 different treatments by 3 different types of architects. I'm not going to address the large-scale development on US Steel because that is a separate show, but you should know that the 79th to 83rd relocated Route 41 to Brandon, that area is going to move forward. It will start construction in 2013. Mostly retail, which will create a destination that will help to bring people through the neighborhood, which will also help jumpstart the other infill housing projects that we're hope to do. Then again, we had to look at transportation. How do you move around this big area? A few years ago, I kidnapped Neil and Angela and a couple other people and took them to Washington, D.C. to the Smart Growth Conference. And kind of laid out this kind of vision that we could actually have a sustainable transportation within the neighborhood that could, people could operate without a car. And so far, so good. So these were some of the things we looked at. We took a trip to Kenosha, Wisconsin, and saw their streetcar system, and there's much more need for it here because there's much more population here. Of course, that's okay. So we hired Trans-Systems, who are the engineers who are doing US Route 41, to look at how would we move around this space. And this is one scenario, and of course you see it goes over the slip. We're not holding our breath on that one because we know that that's a very expensive proposition. It'll be long term, but the idea is to have sustainable transportation along with the sustainable development so people can move in the neighborhood and feel comfortable. And of course, since January 2009, the Special Service Area on Commercial Avenue has actually been running a streetcar, which is fabulous, and it moves pretty well throughout the neighborhood. The Special Service Area merchants on Commercial and the area, they're paying for this. So you have a very marginal cost. You can get on the streetcar, you can move around, and it actually, our first intention was to provide transportation. The second one was to get people very familiar and comfortable with this, so when we decided we could do a bigger system, they would be very familiar with how this works. Okay, April 22nd, Earth Day. We received notification that we are a certified LEED community. So, thank you. It'll take a lot of years. It's a long-term plan, but with the support of your aldermen and actually the entire community, this will keep moving ahead. Without buy-in and support from the community, it doesn't go. But we feel like if you're going to do it, why not do it right? Why not do it green? Why not create a destination where people would want to come down here and see what the LEED neighborhood development in South Chicago looks like? So that's where we're at. And thanks a lot for your time. If you have any questions, please email me, and I can give you everything that I know up to this date. Thanks.